You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
At 12:41 a.m., the lake went silent. 3 college friends camping at an empty off-season site hear a woman's lullaby drifting from the tree line, soft, wordless, and heartbreakingly familiar. Locals whisper about a mother who lost her baby here in the 1970s and was last seen humming along the shore. At first it sounds like a prank, until one of the friends starts moving toward the dark as if called. What follows is a night of vanishing footprints, ash-stained clues, and a voice that seems to know their names. No monsters you can see clearly, just the kind that step into the firelight when you least expect it. This is a real horror about what happens when a lullaby won't let you sleep and won't let you leave. If this kind of slow-burn terror is your thing, subscribe to Soul Studios and turn on notifications. New true account horror drops every week. Come listen, but don't listen too closely. The fire popped and crackled, sending sparks spiraling up to join the stars. I hugged my knees to my chest, perched on a log, and tried to savor the peaceful night air. This camping trip was supposed to be a much-needed escape from our stressful final semester. Just me and 2 friends unwinding in the wilderness. The remote lakeside campground was empty this weekend, so we had the whole forest to ourselves. In theory, that sounded awesome. In practice, as midnight approached and the woods grew silent around us, I felt a slight unease nibbling at the back of my mind. Across the fire, Marcus was animatedly finishing a ridiculous ghost story about a killer clown in the woods, his 3rd campfire tale of the night. On my left, Nina rolled her eyes and tossed another twig into the flames. "All right, Marcus, we get it. You're trying to freak us out," she said, pulling her jacket tighter. "But can we maybe have one night in these woods without you making us imagine axe murderers behind every tree?" Marcus grinned, the firelight dancing in his eyes. "I'm just keeping things interesting. Besides, you love it," he teased. I managed to chuckle, but truth be told, my nerves were a bit frayed. Every snap of a twig in the darkness made me jump tonight. Maybe Marcus's stories were getting to me more than I let on. We fell into a companionable silence for a while, listening to the lake water gently lap at the shore and the breeze rustle through the pines. I was about to suggest we turn in for the night when I heard it. A faint melody carrying through the trees. It was so soft I wondered if I imagined it at first. A woman's voice humming a gentle lullaby somewhere out in the forest. The tune was hauntingly familiar, the kind of sleepy song a mother would croon to a baby. I frowned and looked over at my friends to see if they heard it too. Nina's eyes were already lifted from the fire, scanning the darkness. Marcus had paused in mid-poke of the coals. "Do you guys hear that?" I asked under my breath. "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. He tilted his head, listening. The humming was just audible above the crackle of our fire, a lilting melody with no words. A chill prickled up my arms. It made no sense. There were no other campers for miles, and certainly no reason for someone to be singing a lullaby alone in the woods past midnight. "That's really creepy," Nina whispered, voicing what we were all thinking. "Who would?" She trailed off, eyes fixed on the dark. We sat frozen, staring into the blackness between the trees. The distant humming continued for a few seconds longer, then faded away into the night, leaving only the chorus of frogs and crickets once more. I realized I had been holding my breath and let it out slowly. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Marcus cleared his throat. "Probably just your imagination," he offered unconvincingly. "Or maybe some music from a cabin across the lake. Sound can carry weirdly at night." "There aren't any cabins across the lake," Nina said. She shifted over to sit closer to me, away from the encroaching dark beyond the ring of firelight. I could tell she was unnerved. Frankly, so was I. It's fine, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Maybe someone's camping further out. Or I struggled to think of any normal explanation for an isolated lullaby in the wilderness and came up blank. Let's just forget it. How about we call it a night? Nina nodded quickly. Yeah, let's just sleep. She flashed Marcus a look that clearly said no more stories. He held up his hands in surrender. We doused the campfire, leaving only a faint orange glow among the coals. As we shuffled toward our tents, Marcus couldn't resist adding, "You know, there is a legend about these woods." "Marcus, seriously?" I groaned. He shrugged, unperturbed. "What? If we're already creeped out, might as well know why. Locals call that song the Campfire Lullaby." Nina and I paused. Marcus continued in a hushed tone. "Story goes, back in the 1970s, a young mother used to live around this lake with her infant son. They'd come out at night and sit by a campfire on the shore right about here. She always hummed him a lullaby to sleep. One summer night, the baby went missing. They say he crawled out of the tent while she dozed off by the fire. The lake was searched, the woods combed, but the little boy was never found. The mother, she lost her mind with grief. She refused to leave these woods, wandering the shore for days, singing that lullaby in hopes her child would hear it and come back. Some say she met her end in the lake. Others say her heart just gave out in despair." "That's awful," Nina whispered. Marcus nodded. "Ever since, campers occasionally hear her humming. They call her the Lullaby Lady or the Faceless Mother. Supposedly, if you hear her song and follow it, you'll never find your way out of these woods again." A heavy silence fell. A lone owl hooted in the distance. I tried to shake off the story's grip. "You're just saying that to freak us out more," I said, forcing a laugh that sounded thin. "Real funny, Marcus." But Marcus held up 3 fingers. "I'm not making it up. Scout's honor. I read about it online when I picked this site. I didn't mention it earlier because I didn't want to scare you guys." His tone was earnest now. I wished he'd kept it to himself. We all crammed into my tent that night. No one admitted it was because of the story, but clearly none of us wanted to sleep alone. Nina snuggled into her sleeping bag on one side and Marcus took the other. I clicked off the flashlight and darkness settled in, broken only by the faint orange glow of our last embers through the tent fabric. "Think the Lullaby Lady will tuck us in tonight?" Marcus joked weakly. "Not funny," me and Nina said in unison. Despite the unease, exhaustion eventually took over. One by one, we drifted into an uneasy sleep. I don't know how long I slept before a faint rustling sound inside the tent woke me. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I saw a silhouette sitting up beside me. "Nina?" I whispered groggily. She was upright, her back to me, and she was slowly pushing aside the tent flap. "What is she doing?" I blinked hard, trying to shake off the grogginess. That's when I realized Nina was humming. The same lullaby tune from earlier, barely audible, just a soft mumble under her breath. "Nina?" I repeated, a swell of dread rising. I reached out and touched her arm. Her skin was ice cold. She didn't react, continuing to crawl out through the tent opening. My heart kicked into overdrive. Something was very wrong. "Marcus," I hissed, shaking him awake. He jolted up, disoriented. "What?" I pointed frantically. By that time, Nina had slipped completely outside, silently padding toward the dark tree line. All around us, the night was deathly still. Even the insects were quiet now. Only the faint melody hummed by Nina, through Nina, hung in the air as she drifted forward like a sleepwalker. We scrambled out of the tent, cold night air needling our skin. Nina was about 10 yards away, moving in that slow, trance-like state toward the woods. Marcus sprinted and caught up to her first. He grabbed her shoulder. "Nina, stop!" I reached her side a second later and took her other arm. Her eyes were open but unseeing, pupils huge and glassy. The humming continued from her lips, a lilting ghost of a tune. Together we gently shook her. "Nina, wake up!" I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though panic was rising in my throat. For a horrifying moment she resisted, straining against us with surprising strength, trying to continue toward the trees. Then her eyes fluttered. She inhaled sharply, as if snapping out of a dream. The humming ceased. Suddenly aware of us, Nina yelped in alarm. "What?" she stammered, looking around in confusion. She started shivering violently. "Why am I?" She trailed off, realizing she was standing outside in only her socks. "It's okay," I soothed, though nothing felt okay. "You were sleepwalking. You almost—" I stopped myself, unwilling to finish. "You almost walked into the woods." Marcus wrapped his jacket around Nina's shoulders and guided her back toward the still glowing coals of our fire. She was shaking too hard to walk alone. Her face was ashen. I heard a baby crying," she whispered once we got her sitting down. "I was dreaming, or maybe I wasn't." She looked up at us, eyes wide and brimming with tears. "I thought I heard a baby out there in the dark, and someone was singing to it. I had to follow." We exchanged glances over her head, my heart in my throat. Marcus's expression was grim. We both knew the legend he'd told was no longer just a story. The three of us huddled close around the fire pit, which I frantically rekindled to a healthy blaze. There was no thought of sleep now. I threw log after log onto the fire with shaking hands, urging the flames higher, as if a roaring fire could ward off whatever lurked in the dark. Marcus kept an arm around Nina, who stared into the flames, teeth chattering. My mind raced with desperate plans. Do we pack up and hike back to the car in the middle of the night? Or stay put until dawn? Neither option was comforting, but staying by the light of the fire felt marginally safer for the moment. "I'm so sorry," Marcus kept murmuring to Nina. "I never should have dragged us out here." His bravado from earlier was gone, replaced by guilt and fear. I didn't blame him, but I also didn't disagree. My hands were trembling as I fed another branch to the fire. Each minute crept by. We stayed tense and alert, flinching at every stray rustle from the woods. The lullaby did not return, and that was almost worse. The anticipation was crushing. Just as I began to hope maybe we'd seen the last of her, a new sound drifted from the wall of black trees. It started as a low hum, then the familiar lullaby tune rose once more, now louder than before. The voice was clearer, carrying an emotion that sounded like sorrow so deep it had festered into rage. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Nina gasped, clapping her hands over her ears. "No, no, no," she whimpered. Marcus jumped to his feet, yanking a burning branch from the fire as a makeshift torch. He held it out toward the darkness. "Stay back," he shouted into the woods, voice cracking. It was part warning, part desperate plea. His eyes frantically scanned the tree line, searching for the source of the song. I stood as well and pulled Nina up beside me. We retreated until our backs were close to our pile of gear in the tent, as if mere objects could shield us. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint. And then, in the flickering glow of the fire, I finally saw her. At the very edge of the firelight stood a tall figure. She lingered just beyond the reach of the orange glow, but I could make out the pale outline of a woman in a muddy, torn dress. She cradled something small in her arms. It looked like a bundle of cloth. Her head was bent over it, long, matted hair obscuring her face. And she was humming, that same lullaby, in a lilting, grief-stricken tone that made my eyes brim with tears before I could think. "Hello?" Marcus called out, wavering. "Ma'am, do you need help?" His voice was unnatural, too loud and forced. I could hear the panic in it. I wanted to shout for him to be quiet, but my own voice had shriveled in my throat. The humming stopped. The woman slowly lifted her head from the bundle and looked straight at us. As her face eased into the light, Nina let out a choked sob. The woman's eyes were two empty, dark pits, weeping black tears. Her lips were bluish and parted in a moan. And the rest of her face, it was blurred and decayed as if waterlogged. Patches of skin were missing, revealing raw, peeking flesh. And yet, beneath all that ruin was an expression of unfathomable sorrow and fury. "Give him back," she whispered, though her mangled lips barely moved. The words gurgled out, wet and distorted, as if her lungs were filled with water. We stood paralyzed. Marcus took a half-step forward, torch in one hand and his other hand raised placatingly. "We don't have your child," he managed, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry." His apology was cut short by a piercing shriek. The woman threw her head back and let out a wail so loud and agonized that I felt it in my bones. It wasn't just a sound, it was a psychic howl of pain and anger that sent us reeling. In the same instant, she rushed forward with impossible speed, a blur of tattered grey-white directly at us. "Run!" I screamed, shoving Nina behind me. Marcus thrust the flaming branch out, trying to hold the apparition back. For a split second, the firelight fully illuminated her, and I saw the bundle in her arms was nothing but a charred, empty blanket. Then she was upon him. Her form collided with Marcus, and they crashed to the ground, barely a few feet from the fire. He screamed as the flames of his torch went out, leaving only the bonfire's glow flickering over the chaos. I saw the spectral woman atop him, her claw-like hands clamped onto his shoulders. Her hair fell around them like a curtain, hiding his face. "Marcus," I cried. I grabbed Nina's arm and tried to pull her toward the car parked up the nearby dirt path. Every instinct in me roared to get away now, but Nina tore free of my grip. "We can't leave him," she sobbed, and before I could stop her, she lunged back toward Marcus, snatching up a thick piece of firewood from the ground. With a desperate yell, she swung it at the ghostly figure. To my shock, the log connected, passing through the woman's form but seemingly disrupting her for an instant. The apparition reared back from Marcus, a snarl twisting her ruined mouth. In that heartbeat, Marcus scrambled out from under her, gasping in terror. I dashed forward, seized his arm, and hauled him to his feet. "Go, go, go!" I screamed. Half dragging Marcus, I sprinted toward the car. Nina was right behind us. A furious howl echoed through the night. I glanced back to see the ghostly mother standing once more at the edge of the firelight. The burnt blanket lay at her feet, smouldering with embers where it had fallen. She reached out toward us with both arms, her fingers impossibly long and twisted. Her mouth gaped wide, far wider than any human jaw could open, and another wave of that horrible, soul-rending wail flooded the air. We burst out onto the dirt parking spur where Marcus's SUV was parked. My shaking hands fumbled frantically with the keys as I yanked them from the pocket of my jacket on the ground. Nina yanked the back door open and practically shoved Marcus inside, then dove in after him. I somehow jammed the key into the ignition on the third try. The engine coughed, then roared to life. Headlights flooded the campsite, illuminating nothing. The clearing was empty. The woman in white was gone. Only the swaying trees and our ravaged campsite remained. For one suspended second, I sat there panting, wondering if we had just imagined it all. A heavy thump landed on the roof of the SUV, then another on the hood, denting the metal. The car rocked as something climbed onto it. Through the windshield, a pale, grotesque face slid down into view from above. A woman's face, upside down, her black pits of eyes boring into mine through the glass. That half-rotted mouth stretched into a grin as cracked lips peeled back to reveal a dark, yawning void where her throat should be. I screamed and slammed my foot on the accelerator. The SUV lurched forward, and the apparition slid off the road with a squeal of rage as we sped away down the rutted track. Gravel spat from our tires. In the rearview mirror, lit by the red glow of our taillights, I glimpsed her standing in the middle of the road behind us, watching. Her skeletal outline faded into the darkness as we surged out onto the main road. None of us spoke for the first few miles. My hands ached from gripping the wheel so hard, and I kept checking the mirrors, expecting to see that horror in white lunging after us. But the road stayed empty. We didn't breathe easier until we reached the paved highway and saw the first hint of dawn. Nina was quietly sobbing in the back seat, and Marcus, next to her, stared straight ahead with vacant eyes, tear tracks on his cheeks. We were alive, but each of us was shattered. The early glow of morning was just lightening the sky as I finally eased my foot off the gas. We had escaped. As the adrenaline ebbed, a heavy sorrow settled in my chest. The legend was real, and that poor woman's spirit was trapped in endless mourning. I almost felt pity for her, if I hadn't also felt sheer terror at the thought of what she'd done. I drew a shuddery breath. "Is everyone okay?" I croaked. It was a stupid question. None of us were okay, but I had to break the silence. Marcus let out a hollow laugh that turned into a sob. "Alive," he managed. "We're alive." He reached over to squeeze Nina's hand. She had fallen oddly quiet, gazing out the window as the sun inched over the horizon. I caught Marcus's eyes in the rearview mirror. We shared a look of exhausted gratitude and horror without saying a word. It was only a few minutes later, on the stretch of road leading back to town, that I heard it. a faint humming from right behind my seat. That gentle melody, a lullaby, being hummed ever so softly. My blood ran cold. I saw Marcus's face in the mirror, his expression twisting in fresh panic as he turned toward the back seat. Nina sat there, staring blankly ahead, tear-streaked and pale, and humming the lullaby under her breath. "Nina," Marcus whispered shakily, giving her shoulder a little shake. She didn't seem to hear him. She just kept humming that tune as the bright morning sun finally broke over the trees and we drove onward, unsure if we had truly escaped the nightmare after all. They say you can escape the woods, but some songs follow you forever. Tonight, as darkness falls, listen closely, because the lullaby you hear might not just be in your imagination. Sleep tight and remember, not every bedtime story is meant to comfort you. Some lullabies don't put you to sleep, they put you to rest.
Every story has an end, but here, the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.